Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Supper Suite at Austin, South by Southwest. We are covering a whole ton of movies here. Thanks to our fine friends. Right now, we are going to give a quick plug to Hint Water because we are so thankful for Hint Water because now we get to talk about a movie like Miss White Light, which I'll just tell you guys right off the bat, I absolutely loved. I already said it to you all, and I genuinely mean it. This one really kind of got me, and I was surprised because usually when it comes to subject matter like this, I get super sensitive, and this kind of left me in a hopeful place, so I really appreciate that. Let's start with you, Paul. Where exactly did this idea come from? Do professions like this really exist, and is that what inspired it?
This initially came from being with my dad while he was dying, and it just was on my mind quite a bit. So I wanted to explore this subject matter. As far as this profession existing, I made it up, but there's weird little pockets of there is a death industry, and so there are people that don't officially work for hospice that do. Like I've heard the term death doula. That's an actual thing that I've. Carson's an actual doula,
Really?
but yeah, the more joyful version of a doula. But there is I've heard the term death doula. There are people that kind of tinker, but not this. They're not people in strip malls with like quasi-failing businesses trying to do this.
Oh, now I'm really curious. Given the fact that you are an actual doula, do you see any similarities between how it's handled here and what you do?
Absolutely. Being I think the word doula is used for birth and death, and we actually call it full spectrum doula, because it's the same job, just different, same passageway, same job, different times of people's lives. I think it's just the power of listening to someone, holding their hand, not having your own emotional stake in the game for birth and death, but really just being there as an advocate and a ear. I think they're exactly the same.
That's so wildly impressive, because as an overly emotional person, I can't imagine taking that out of the equation.
I'm overly emotional and overly anxious person, so I feel like in a way I was gravitated towards this job to help me deal with that and to put me in a place where I had to be strong for somebody else.
Oh, that's so nice.
I can relate to that for sure.
It's a very important thing to have in this world. Roberta, I'm dying to know about how you joined here, because really, this is one of my favorite performances of the entire festival. I love what you did here. So what drew you to this particular role, and is there anything kind of Paul helped you with that brought something out of you that you didn't even know you were capable of before?
I read the script. My agent kind of sent me the script, and I read it, and I loved it, and it was after I met Paul, and then we had a conversation on the phone when I was at my friend's house in Long Island, and I really wanted to do the movie, and I wanted to talk to Paul about where he was coming from when he wrote it, and like what he kind of expected out of Lex, because you go into auditions, sometimes all you know is what's in the script, and you don't have a background you don't have like the conversation with the director before you go in an audition. So once we got to talking about it, I was just like, yeah, this is a really cool, different vulnerability that I've never really touched in my career so far, and I was really happy to do it. I mean, like I don't get to play characters like this very often. So
you don't see characters like this very often.
No,
it's very,
no.
very refreshing.
No.
In the movie, it's brought up pretty often where people are asking her, like, what do you really do? And it's never defined as in a bullet point list. So I was just curious, just for you getting into that headspace, is that something the two of you had to work out yourself?
I mean, there is a certain hesitance that she has about answering anything about herself, and so I'm not like a method actor or anything like that, but I was just like, I'm not going to question all of these choices. I'm not going to go there. Like, it almost felt like if I questioned too much about her, I would be doing it without her consent. Like, she would want the privacy of and so I but the conversations that I had with Paul were really illuminating as far as like where he came from when he was writing it, and so like if I just wanted to pay attention to that and be there for that.
Another big standout element to the movie is the father-daughter relationship. I understand that they have to work on things, they're in too much of a routine, but there was something about just the comfort of that whole thing that I really took to. So can you tell me a little bit about just prepping for the movie for the two of you? Because I imagine it's a little challenging to just jump into a shoot and be able to have so much family history kind of radiate off screen like that.
Yeah, and it's, to me, it was everything, the relationship. From my perspective. And so I really wanted to meet Roberta, and we met at some diner in the West Village. Yeah. And you're right, she was not really gung-ho about answering too many questions. And I, on the other hand, was like, so what do you think, and when? And so how long do you think, and why are we in Indiana? And she's like, well, it's just as it is. It's just, it's how it is. And I was like, yeah. But, maybe we should, I was just really excited about tackling those questions, but more importantly, just like broadly, the father-daughter relationship at that age, like a middle-aged man and then a young adult daughter. I grew up with a single mom, and like didn't have the dad, so I really was looking forward to visiting some of those dreams of mine, in this relationship, and yes, they have problems, but I love the consistency and the loyalty and the commitment that is there for him. It was a lot of fun.
I'm in that place with my father right now where there's so much now. He's in his 70s and I'm, at my age, and like it's just, there are things that we've never talked about, and now I'm like, how do I even bring this up? Like, when? Like, we're, because we've never had those conversations, and I love that about this relationship and playing this relationship, is that like you realize at some point years and years later that you don't know stuff about people that you're the closest with, and you don't even know how to bring it up. And
I am well aware of that, given the fact that I'm at like right the same point in life with my father. So it's definitely a really touching thing to see on screen. And Judith, we were talking about this before. You're having quite the year right now, because you know how much I loved Before You Know It.
Yeah.
How is the festival circuit life treating you right now? Are you like exhausted from all the traveling?
No, not at all. I mean, I get to be with these folk, and that's really a joy for me. And to see that this film is getting the kind of attention that I really believe that it deserves. And we can all talk about how tired we are, and those are real problems. These problems. I was just so exhausted. No, I don't. They don't go there. This is a thrilling time, and a thrilling time in my life, my career. And I just wanted to say something to the two of you. I was just listening to you, and I was thinking, there's this thing about how we think our career is the whole container for everything in lots of ways, but it's our lives that get affected. So it's the life that's a container, and all the content of the different parts that we play and the different things that we do brings up things in our lives that are waking us up to things that we hadn't talked about before. Like you were talking about being a doula, and Paul is talking about dealing with his father's death, and you're talking about your relationship with your father, and you're coming to grips with your relating to not having had a father. And there's something about working on a project that is as substantive and as deep and as rooted in relating as this project is, that I think takes us all up to a whole other level in our lives. And I think that's what this is for. That's what we do this for.
That's why I love filmmaking and storytelling.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's the storytelling that leads us into something, and then all of a sudden we wake up and we say, oh wow, I didn't deal with my father. I didn't deal with my father. Not that you didn't deal with it, but it wakes us up to something else that's very rich and vibrant for all of us. So
another thing I wanted to ask you about, because I know Before You Know It takes place in New York, and I just heard Long Island, and I love the New York film community.
Yes.
Sadly, I had to move from New York to LA, even though I love LA. New York is always at my heart. So I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit to kind of the community there, because we're clearly, even though the business is in LA, we are clearly getting a whole bunch of great projects in New York.
Oh, New York there's no question about it. I mean, it's really become a film and television mecca at this point. And I know a lot of projects that I'm talking about right now we're going to be doing in New York. And so it's not like, all of a sudden, and I happen to be, I mean, I'm a Jersey girl, and I'm a New Yorker, and my husband loves LA, and you can love LA, and that's great. But there's also another part, and I just finished a great project in LA. I like it. I love New York, and to see this happening in New York. But also, I would speak to the fact that Indiana and Zach and Paul and Gordon Strain and Mark, I mean, they're all doing this this community in Indiana that's demonstrating and inspiring other people to know that you can do this kind of film work and this great film work in your community. And in this particular case, we shot in Bloomington, Indiana. It's just it was a thrill. I mean, I thought, Indiana, really? And I got there, but that should be your tag, right, or your T-shirt. Indiana, really?
Dreams aren't dumb. Should switch over to Indiana, really.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
Indiana question mark?
Really
That's what everyone
Indiana
says.
question mark?
That's what everyone says.
Why?
But it's important. It's really important to speak to that as we speak about New York and LA, and right here in the middle of the country, we have this place that is booming.
I do want to say that I did read a couple years ago that in New York there is now we've switched tides, that New York has more television and film production in the last 5 years than LA.
And that's partly because Bloomberg, who was genius in giving the tax break, when we shot Ugly Betty there, we saved $500,000 on every single show every week. I mean, that
He
you
really
can't
made a
do-
difference.
You can't beat that.
Absolutely.
So if you guys want to come to New York,
Tax incentives are there.
Yeah, hopefully we get a tax incentive in Indiana. If that happens, just watch out.
Well, now
All
I'm
of Stranger
curious
Things.
about the community there and how
Yeah.
that started, because I know you two have worked together before also.
Yeah. Well, I was an undergrad at Indiana University when Paul was a grad student there, and he wrote the very first plays that I ever acted in. So we've known each other over 10 years. Yeah. How old do you think you are? I'm much older than that. Yeah. So for a really long time, we did our first movie, Piggus's first film, The Good Catholic. We did that together back in Bloomington, and since then we've been trying to build this groundswell of films that you don't expect to come out of the Midwest. Like when I was growing up in Indiana, the only movies to come out of Indiana were about white guys achieving at sports. You know, like Hoosiers, Rudy, Breaking Away. They're all great films, and they're some of my favorite movies. But you didn't see movies like this, and the diversity of story that's being able to take place in stories like that in Indiana. And so that's something we're focusing on. We want to tell different types of stories in places that you don't expect, and reach new audiences with those stories. Because we come from the New York background, so we've got the roots of New York theater. And being able to see the different people that you're able to touch with the theater in New York, I mean, that's what we're trying to take that and bring it into the middle of the Midwest.
It's so important to do, especially being somewhere like Austin right now. I love the community here, and I love how this festival also highlights movies with Austin in it. Yeah. So to see that in all different areas of the country is super exciting. Yeah. I think I have to wrap this up soon. I have a million more questions, but to conclude, I just wanted to ask you guys what in this movie kind of stuck with you the most. There's so many different things, and like I said at the very beginning, the feeling that I walked away with was probably the biggest takeaway, but the one scene that I don't think I'm ever going to shake is the pizza conversation. Just this idea of you not being able to enjoy something you want to enjoy, but being able to enjoy it through somebody else. So like that was kind of the one big thing for me, but I was curious what you guys are going to take with you from this experience.
Who wants to go first?
This is a big one.
I mean, on my end, I have, been in the editing room with this thing for so long. I've been living with this for a very long time. And honestly, the thing that I really love about, and I'm realizing it now, because I've not seen these people together in the same room until today. Because there's fragmented scenes, and they're not all in scenes together. And to see everybody here and realize, I thought they were all, like when I watched the movie, it feels like they were all working in unison as one unit, and seeing them now together in real life in a room for the first time, that's kind of what hit me, that like, wow, these people were so good at their job that I assumed that they all knew each other like for the last 2 years.
Well, you're our driving connection, and so that really makes a huge difference. We also know that in your choice of casting, you also choose people not only for what they are able to do in terms of their craft, but also who they are as human beings, and that's your grand intuition. I would say for me, it's about how do we live? Since we know we're going to die, how are we going to live? Oh.
I feel like it's a testament to the strength of the movie that I interpreted that as a positive thing.
There's no question about it. Something for you, babe?
Yeah, I think what stuck with me is the ability that we rely on ourselves, but also connection and other people to help us realize how we want to live, and how a single encounter can shift the whole course of one's life, I think is powerful. Yeah.
Any last minute additions before I get kicked off the stage?
Yeah, I'll just say that as fragmented as the stories within the story are with the characters and how isolated they seem and alone, the thing that I'm left with is the overcoming of that for the sake of connection and to live, but to live boldly. And the script does that when you read it. It's just like a bold ass script. It's like pages of dialogue, monologues, and it's like, wow, you just don't see that. And it's like, and it's and there's something refreshing about that. Not only as an actor to take that on, but I think it's an extension of how I want to be left with how I choose to live my life, which is in this bold manner.
Very well said. All right, guys. I think I have to wrap this up, sadly. Thank you so much for watching this interview right now. A huge thanks to all you guys for being here. Again, Miss Whitelight, please keep an eye out for it. It is a great movie right here from the Supper Suite in Austin. Thanks for watching this. We will see you soon with more South by Southwest interviews.
Yeah.